If you have trouble coming up with melodies for your beats, there's a plugin right inside FL Studio that you might not know about. It's called Riff Machine, and it's a super helpful tool that can help you generate a melody with a few simple clicks. And today I'm showing you guys how you can use it to help you make better melodies in your beats. Alright, so starting off, let's say you come up with a chord progression that you really like. And now it comes for the hard part, coming up with the melody that's going to complement this chord progression well. I've chosen my sound here that I'm going to be using for my melody. The first thing that you want to do when you're using Riff Machine is copy and paste your chord progression that you came up with and paste it into your melody channel. What I'm going to do is take this up a couple octaves just so it's a little bit more clear. As well, what you want to do is make sure that the chords actually take up the entire loop, so let's extend these out. Now at this point, to use Riff Machine, what you want to do is go into Tools up here and click Riff Machine. Alternatively, you can just hit Alt and E. So right off the bat, you guys can see our notes that we came up with, our chord progression there completely vanished. To use this tool to help us come up with a melody, what you want to do is start off by clicking Work on Existing Score. What this will do is use the notes from our original chord progression to help come up with a starting point for our melody. You guys can see here it generated this crazy arp. But you guys can hear the notes that it's playing actually aren't from our original chord progression. Like for example, I don't remember there being an F in the one that we came up with. The reason why is because you guys can see here, this option to create the progression is turned on. So if we turn this off, now it's going to use the notes from our original progression. It's not going to generate its own. And if you go into the next tab, you guys can see this option is also on, where it turns into a chord progression, so we can turn that off as well, since we're not going to be needing that. Next up is the Arpeggiation tab, which is exactly where we want to be in order to help generate a melody. So to try out a bunch of different ideas for our melody, you guys can start off by using this pattern area right here. If you click on this arrow, you guys can see it has a bunch of different presets, a bunch of different choices that we can use in order to play around with a good starting point. As well, if you guys wanted to, you can click on this folder button, and by default it chooses between the different presets in the Riff Machine folder under the arpeggiator. But if you want, you guys can go back into these different folders and try out some of these if you want. For example, I can go into chopping, arpeggios, check out what's in scales, and it's going to come up with a bunch of different options. Now from here, you can start playing around with the different options down below here. This is going to have a huge impact in the pattern that Riff Machine generates. But if you have a hard time coming up with a starting point, what I like to do is use this random button up here. This is just going to help us cycle through a bunch of different starting points, a bunch of different ideas. What it's going to do is just change all of these options all at once, and we can start playing around with what sounds good to us. Now, once it feels like we have a good starting point for our melody, what we can do at this point is go into these different options down here and make smaller adjustments to our pattern. Starting off, we have the pattern option right here. What this is going to do is help us choose whether we want Riff Machine to create the pattern as normal, or if we want to shift the pattern around with the different choices here. The time multiplier knob right next to it is going to have a huge impact on our pattern. What it's going to do is change the timing of our pattern around, as well as play with the note length. The range area right below here, you guys can see it's going to let us choose how many octaves we want our pattern to jump up or down, and the option next to it lets us choose the direction. Sync here right below lets you control the arp pattern and how often it repeats, and the gate right here lets us trim the notes down if we want to do that. So the randomize button at the very top here, this is going to help us come up with a starting point for our melody. And from there, we can use these options right down below here in order to make these smaller adjustments to help us fit the overall beat a little bit better. So now that I have my starting point for my melody, what I'm going to do is hit accept. And now I can go in and make smaller adjustments to the actual notes themselves if I wanted to, change the timing around a little bit. So overall, this is a super helpful tool when it comes to creating melodies. So if you have trouble coming up with melodies in your beat, this is a great tool that will easily help you come up with a good starting point for a melody, and from there you can make adjustments as you see fit. If you found this video helpful, please do like, subscribe. If you have your own tools and tips that you like to use whenever you're coming up with your melodies, feel free to share them in the comment section down below. As always, my free drum kit is available in the description box below as well, and I will see you guys next Tuesday.